Woo, what a week it's been. The newspapers are absolutely cracking this morning. Can't wait to get into those. We've got Michael Gove coming on the show, Secretary of State for Levelling Up, frenemy of Boris Johnson, who sacked him on the day he announced his resignation as PM. Going to be speaking to him about all things Partygate, Boris and beyond. David Davis, former Brexit Secretary, and Tory grandees coming on to speak to me in the studio. I'm also going to be discussing the SNP and Nicola Sturgeon and all things Scottish with Anna Sarwar, who's the Scottish Labour leader. I'm going to be joined by Brendan Clark-Smith, one of the few Tories still backing Boris publicly, and Robert Buckland, the former Justice Secretary, is going to give me his exclusive reaction to Levi Belfield's prison marriage. Can you believe that prisoners like Levi Belfield, despicable, evil criminals, are even in a position to get married in prison? So I'll be discussing all that with him later. Fun-packed show, don't go anywhere. Stay with me and let's go through the front pages. So, the Sunday Times has got an exclusive interview with Prince William. I'll end homelessness, he says. This is about his plan to try and use the Duchy of Cornwall to house people in social housing. The Sunday Telegraph, Starmer aide Sue Gray broke civil service job rules. Going to be discussing that throughout the show. This is an exclusive by the Sunday Telegraph, which basically says that Simon Case and the top lawyer there found that she was in contravention of the rules for accepting that job with Keir Starmer. The Observer, just an ex-MP, Sunak's allies pour scorn on beaten Johnson, making the point that he is dead and buried in politics for now. The Mail on Sunday, proof Boris accuser did go to party in lockdown. This is about Bernard Jenkin, who's on that Privileges Committee, and whether or not the party he went to was a party or was for business reasons. Sun on Sunday, Three Lions Kyle in Wags bust-up. We won't be covering that story today, but that's the front page of the Sun on Sunday. Sunday Express. Now, this, I think, hits at the heart of all of these problems. We're going on about psychodramas in the Tory party. Who actually cares? As the Sunday Express says, get a grip and save economy. I mean, probably that should be the government's priority right now. And Sunday Mirror, lockdown video bombshell. The Partygate tapes. They've got footage of people partying in CCHQ. And who better to discuss that than the Sunday Mirror's former political editor, Nigel Nelson, GB News' senior political analyst, I think we call you these days,
Commentator.
Nigel. Commentator. Yeah. I quite like analyst because it makes it sound slightly Nasser-esque. Now, look, your old paper's got a great scoop here. They've managed to get this footage of inside this party, the offending party with staff of Sean Bailey, formerly a candidate for London Mayor, now appear in the House of Lords because he was ennobled by Boris Johnson. And we're calling that leak one of the day. What's the reaction to it? I mean, it's pretty bloody damaging, isn't it?
It is. I mean, there were at least 24 staffers there. We know that two of them got honours on the basis of that. One was Ben Mallet, who was Sean Bailey's campaign chief. Yeah. He got an OBE. He's in the video. In fact, Sean Bailey, who got a peerage, had left before the video was taken.
Let's have a look at it, Nigel, because we have got it here.
Party. Lots of us ends up in an ad. And lots of Instagram Live. As long as we don't stream it, we're like. Well, I'm pretty sure impressive, I've got to say. Laura?
What do you think of this?
Laura?
Well, that's all very jolly, isn't it, Nigel?
Well, jolly, and I think drink's been taken by the look of it, doesn't it?
And social distancing out the window, seemingly. So, look, it's very damaging. Do we think that there should now be further police involvement? Where do we take Partygate? Do we take it further? Do people care on the doorstep?
Well, I mean, bear in mind this was investigated first time round and the police didn't find a breach of the rules. Yeah. Now, quite clearly, when you look at that video, that's evidence that they didn't have at the time. All they had was a picture of all of them together. The question, obviously, is it in the public interest for the police to waste an awful lot more time on dealing with Partygate matters?
What do you think?
Well, I mean, they did it with Keir Starmer because Keir Starmer was... they had one investigation over Beergate, they had a second investigation after complaints, and he was cleared of that. I think my general view is that now we're so far away from the event that probably the police time involved is best to leave it alone.
Yeah. And also, I suppose, with the crime rate not exactly looking particularly clever, people might want them to investigate their burglaries and mobile phone muggings rather than this. Let's look at leak 2 of the day, as we're calling it. Telegraph splash.
Lots of leaks.
There's leaks all over there. I'll tell you what, yeah, it's like St David's Day all over again. Report by the Cabinet Office finds Sue Gray broke impartiality rules. Well, this is interesting. Sunday Telegraph has obviously got hold of the report into Sue Gray going from being this top civil servant to becoming Chief of Staff for Keir Starmer. Does this now mean that the Labour leader has to stop this appointment, do you think, Nigel?
No, I don't think he needs to do that. I mean, the issue here is that certainly Sue Gray was Miss Propriety. That was her job, that everyone was in fear of her in Whitehall because she was such a stickler for the rules.
Yes.
And certainly the fact that she would appear... I mean, the report is not actually totally conclusive on this, according to the Telegraph, but it seems to be that she broke the rules.
So Miss Impropriety now?
Yeah, I think so. And on the basis that, that she was in breach of the Civil Service Code simply by not declaring the fact she was talking to the opposition.
Is this a spectacular own goal for Keir Starmer? I mean, he could have chosen somebody who wouldn't have been facing this scrutiny. Sue Gray's become a household name.
Well,
like
she
the
has.
most famous civil service servant of recent times.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that she'll do a good job as his Chief of Staff, so I don't see a problem there.
But it does call into question her analysis of the events around Partygate, her report on Boris Johnson.
I'm not sure it does, really, because her meetings with Keir Starmer happened after she'd done the report.
Yes.
So I don't think it's a bit like the privileges inquiry. I don't think there is actually any question of bias or inaccuracy in her original report.
I don't get this, because people who criticise this show say, oh, you can't leave your biases at the door, everyone's biased. We know that everybody has opinions. It's the same with the Harriet Harman situation. I know we disagree on this. She tweets that she thinks Boris Johnson has misled Parliament before she is chairing an investigation into whether he misled Parliament. She should have recused herself. Sue Gray should have said, I can't accept this job because it's going to make me look as if I wasn't impartial as a civil servant. And actually, both conclusions aren't difficult to jump to.
No, I can see you can make that criticism, but the point basically is, on both the things that you're mentioning, look at the privileges report. If anyone can actually wade through 108 pages and 30,000 words,
yes.
I think that they would conclude that any group of MPs would have reached the same conclusion that the privileges report did.
Let's talk about one of those MPs, Bernard Jenkin, who's on the Privileges Committee. Now, we've got an invitation that's been publicised on the Mail on Sunday. Eleanor Lang said that this event that took place that Bernard Jenkin was at was a business meeting in the vein of how Boris Johnson's explained some of his meetings with Cake. It now emerges that Bernard Jenkin's wife, Anne, who's also an MP, actually sent out an invite calling it a birthday party.
Yes, she did. And what it said was that she was having birthday drinks and she was holding it for a few of her favourite people.
So should Bernard Jenkin be investigated by police?
Well, I mean, in this case, in the same way as the Sean Bailey party, this happened roughly the same time. Meetings indoors were banned. So again, this would be a matter for the police. The question comes down to, in the same way, is it in the public interest now to look back?
I mean, I
this?
get that it's in Boris Johnson's interest to investigate Bernard Jenkin. I mean, he's called him a giant hypocrite, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Boris Johnson, the cheerleaders, are using Harriet Harman and Bernard Jenkin as kind of displacement activity for the report.
This is my argument then. If there was going to be displacement activity and the report was going to be called into question, Harman should have recused herself to avoid those criticisms. And Bernard Jenkin, if he's been at birthday parties in December 2020, isn't really in a position to comment on Partygate. What are either of those two doing on the committee?
I don't think Harriet Harman needed to recuse herself. On Bernard Jenkin, I think perhaps he did.
Yeah, all right. Let's move into two interviews that have caught our eye. The first of them is in the Mail on Sunday, David Warburton. Now, just give us a bit of context to why he's now standing down as a Tory MP, Nigel.
He also is complaining about the inquiries into him. It seems to be
Kafkaesque.
Yeah, it seems to be a bit of a fashion at the moment. What this is, he was caught taking cocaine, and there are allegations that he was harassing women. People
might remember this story because at the time his justification for taking the cocaine was that it wasn't cocaine. He actually had a habit of gathering dandruff in lines.
Which is a worse admission.
My goodness. But anyway, and it's going to spark a by-election.
Yes.
So let's put it this way to simplify, Nigel, because as ever, time is running away with us. There are 4 by-elections now. Can you give us your predictions on all 4 of them?
Yeah, I think that in David Warburton's seat, Somerton and Frome, 19,000 majority, captured from the Lib Dems, now a Lib Dem target, probably get it.
Yeah.
Uxbridge, I think, will go to Labour.
Yeah.
I think absolutely. Selby, not sure.
Nigel Adams' seat.
Yeah, that could go either way. The
Tories could keep that.
The Tories could hold that. When Mid-Beds finally comes up, probably go to Lib Dems.
It's not going to be a great time for the Tories, whatever happens, it sounds. Very quickly, because you were interested in William talking to the Sunday Times about homelessness. I mean, you could ask the question, royals are meant to be politically impartial. Is homelessness sort of bordering on politics? Is he right to do this, Nigel?
I don't think so. It's actually helping young people. That William is saying, look, he's seen an awful lot of young people sofa surfing, wants to give them some kind of home, some social housing on his Duchy of Cornwall estate. That seems fine. His father spent a lot of time with the Prince's Trust helping young people. That is not political. It doesn't cross the line.
No, and also, actually, the criticism is you've got too many homes and you're not putting them to good use. So this is a progressive decision by a young woman. Nigel Nelson, thank you as ever for joining me this morning for what has been a stellar crop of papers. Buy a paper, people. That's what we do here.